Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades. Gas masks and hand grenades.
Hey, what is happening, YouTube? It's Gas Masks and Hand Grenades here. I'm your host, Jeff, and look what the cat dragged in. I got these two guys straight from, I was going to say Germany, but you're not in Germany, you're in Netherlands. So, still, mainland Europe, I've got Mr. Morean, and I've got Mr. Hannes Grossman. Finally, we've reined them in. We've got them here. So, good to see you guys. We'll pretend that we didn't already talk for 10 minutes. How's it going? How you doing?
All right, actually, we have our huge Bach program coming up on the Bach Festival this Saturday. So today was our very first rehearsal, a pile from here to the moon of notes to learn and to play. But actually, considering it was a first rehearsal, it was actually all right. I mean, promising, not as bad as it could have been.
No, not at all. I mean, it's like two hours material or something like that.
Yeah, 80 minutes.
80
Is
minutes.
that how long the show's going to be? About 2 hours. Wow.
No, hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Okay.
Still, for this kind of complexity, it's a lot to.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that. So first of all, tell me what the Bach Out of Bounds is, how it came to be. I have a feeling, Morean, you were pretty instrumental in that. And like, give us some feel for what it is you're doing. You have 3 dates, or is it 4?
We have 2 dates now, and then 1 in the fall, and then in between we do a handful of normal metal shows. Let's say Alkaloid.
Right.
Yeah. So how this came to be is like in daily life, I'm a classical composer, so that's my scene. Let's say contemporary music. And I know a lot of people in the Netherlands because, I mean, that's my work. And the boss of a Bach festival in a town close to Rotterdam, she called me and she asked me 2 things. Do you want to write a new piece for the next edition? And can you put together a program for us that combines Bach with metal? So it was their initiative. And since I've spent already a couple of decades doing those kind of crossovers, I like that they call me, if somebody needs, classical music combined with metal. So it's almost an automatic thing. And of course, I'm very happy about that. And my first thought was, I got to do this with Alkaloid because, I mean, Bach, many musicians, and I'm one of them, see Bach as the greatest composer of all time, just simply because of the quantity and quality of his work. And when he was done doing his thing, music had to change because you couldn't possibly do what he did better. So he is truly, a giant. And personally, I might have chosen a different composer to combine metal with, just because the bar is so unbelievably high. And if you play Bach, or if you arrange Bach, as I've done, because you've got to translate it onto metal instruments, or in our case, metal instruments plus a couple of classical instruments, it's not going to get better because, it's perfect in its original form. So we're trying to add something to it that brings something new without changing the notes. And then obviously you have the metal instruments, and then we are joined by a couple of string players and 2 singers. So we're like one big band/ensemble, and throughout the whole program, the music is going to go back and forth all the time. It's all interlaced as if we're one big hybrid thing between a classical ensemble and a metal band.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do a couple of Bach pieces, among which the very famous harpsichord concerto in D minor, which is it's more than 20 minutes, 3 parts, and endless rows of 16th notes, which is immediately the link with like the more technical death metal, which is also lots of notes and very often sort of classical harmonies. So that was one link I saw. And then, of course, if we have 6 people more for these shows, and extremely good players that are, I mean, they're classical players, but they can play everything, and they love also a challenge. Of course, I needed to arrange also our regular set, our regular Alkaloid songs for this expanded orchestration. And I saw a chance to feature the non-metal parts of Alkaloid in a very different way and in a bigger way. So, for example, if there's a short jazz part in a death metal song,
Mhm.
we can expand that jazz part now because we have actual jazz people. The same for like if you have more than one voice going on with choral-like music, now we can just do this properly and stuff. So people are going to hear Bach how they've never heard it. They're going to hear Alkaloid how they've never heard it. And I'm also presenting 2 pieces that we haven't played before. One is a completely new 10-minute sort of compact space opera that I wrote for the whole, for the whole ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, I would say it's a new Alkaloid song, but it's a bit of a special song also because it has 3 singers, and it's not going to sound like Bach, but I'm using the polyphonic composition techniques of Bach, but with my own harmony in my own world, let's say, because I didn't want to copy the sound of Bach, but I wanted to, I mean, that was the commission also, that I do something, I create something new based on something out of Bach's time. So I used the composition techniques and wrote a new piece. And yeah, today was the very first time that any of this sounded from actual amps and speakers. And then on Tuesday, we're gonna get together with everybody else, and then it starts in earnest. And then I'm gonna know if it all works as I hoped. But yeah, it's extremely exciting. And of course, as these things go, it's the first of 3 shows that we do with this program. And of course, that show is going to be recorded and it's going to be broadcast live on national radio. And there's like a lot of attention for it, so we cannot fuck it up. So we have a heavy week ahead of us now, but we're
pretty exciting stuff. I mean, I gather too. I mean, I'm not super versed in classical, Morean. I mean, I know enough to kind of be dangerous, but I guess really thinking back, like Bach is often kind of considered like the godfather of polyphony, right? I mean, where multiple voicings and multiple parts going on at the same time, and
that's exactly what it's about. And that is one big difference with metal, because in metal usually you have one riff and then maybe a lead over it or some chord or something, but basically everybody plays the same most of the time. Whereas here it's about having several voices that each are equally important. So that adds a complexity to the instrument of a metal band that is also really heavy to tackle, because of course, we're used to playing whatever 1-note riffs, everybody plays the same, and that 1 note is so fat that you don't need anything else. Right. And now we have like 12 parts, that are all interweaving into each other, and you have to hear everything and stuff. So also for the sound guy, it's going to be a real challenge. But I love this. I mean, I love complex music. I love polyphonic music. I love layers in music that, even if you listen to a track 1,000 times, that you can still hear something new. This richness is something I always kind of.
When did this idea kind of germinate? How long ago did they approach you for this?
A year and a half ago.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been busy with this really for a year and a half, and like a couple of hours per day. It's been like an endless marathon to get where we are today.
I bet.
But at the same time, of course, it's a unique chance to do something that otherwise we would never do. I mean, us, an extreme metal band representing, the Bach Festival somewhere.
Right. It's very cool. Yeah, it's I mean, and you guys are kind of the weirdo band to do it. No offense, but you guys are kind of the weirdo band, right? I mean, you do shit that like nobody does. You mix fucking Morbid Angel with Yes. I'll never forget the first time I heard Liquid Anatomy. A buddy of mine from DC called me up. He's like, dude, you hear of Alkaloid yet? I'm like, no. He's like, it's Hans Grossman, and he named off Christian, which we'll talk about Christian in a moment here. And I threw on Colonel Panic. I'm like, holy fuck, man. It's 90125 era Yes with some Crimson with some fucking Morbid Angel. Like, who does that? Nobody does that. That can't work. The whole album can't work like that. And then I get through the album, I'm like, that fucking rule, man. That shit is bizarre. But you guys could do this. I mean, to say that no metal guys have tackled Bach or classical wouldn't exactly be true. I mean, yeah, Yngwie was doing all the classical, neoclassical, Uli, those guys, but they weren't doing it in a context of more extreme metal. They were usually just playing the lines directly and not trying to have a full ensemble piece where you've got multiple other musicians. Hannes, how do you work yourself into something like that? Because it's not, Bach is not drum heavy music, essentially.
There are no drums.
No,
there are no drums. Exactly. How do you find your place in that?
It was very difficult, I have to say. At first, I couldn't come up with anything because it's hard to tell where is the actual groove from a drummer perspective. Drums are an instrument that come from, I would say, jazz music, more or less. And even though extreme metal is far away from that, most of the time it's very like in blocks and so on. But still, it's a completely different base. And in Bach music, as we mentioned before, is polyphonic music. So all the lines are, they create something together. It's like one line in itself doesn't really make sense. You need all the lines, but you cannot, as a drummer, I mean, focus on like 4 different. You could, I guess, like play with your right hand on this violin and then with your left hand with a cello or something like that. But that doesn't really work. So to make it in a today's, like a contemporary musical context, also in the context of this band, you need to get Bach into like more regular form of drum performance. But there are no dots to me where you could actually say, okay, here's the pulse. I mean, there's a rhythm like 3/4.
Right, you're looking for a pulse that you can play. But
there's no pulse. You have to define the pulse yourself, and then see how we come up with. So, yeah, I then I told him that I'm really running out of ideas and time to come up with anything myself where I would say this makes sense from a musical point of view, but I know what needs to be there. Maybe can you just make a very basic programming? Because a sketch. I would need a sketch to start off with, because when you arranged all the other instruments, it's much easier for you to make a sketch than
Yeah, because
so I have there are the accents, there's the pulse, there's something. Okay, I can work with that with a drum demo, and then figure it out. And then when I play with that drum demo and the notation to the whatever programmed thing or to a demo or something like that, and I play something similar, and then I, through my headphones, because I have to play with headphones to hear the music.
Sure.
Then I pick up like some lines. I was like, oh, this violin is doing this, or this guitar is doing that, and I could lead it more, the attention more to that. Or then I say, okay, in this part I just play basic notes, basic pulse, and pull myself back, and then what to actually accent and what lines to be featured, because whenever I accompany a certain line that stands out, and when I have to decide what do I hear, what stands out here, and can I do that, or will it fall apart? And it's very fragile in that sense.
Tricky to know when to lay back and when to go all in, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not going to do like a fucking Bee Gees groove over a Bach concerto. You're not going to be doing Staying Alive, right? I mean,
unless it fits. Yeah,
well, there you go. True.
Unless it fits. And what we do a lot in that one movement is like swing patterns, because it fits. It has like an upbeat, like 1, 2, something like that, and that kind of fits. And then I was like, okay, that's more like rooted in drums, this feel, because it's upbeat, like jazzy, and that's something where the instrument comes from, like from swing music. And I was like, this could work. And then going from there more into fusion type beats, and then have like, when guitars kick in, like have a little double bass drumming along that, more play with the dynamics. And once you have nailed down the structure of it and what the pulses and what decided what you play more or less, then you can decide what the dynamic range of what you play is.
In a way, you summarize the complexity of everything together. Not you don't play along with one thing, but you play along with the sum of everything. And it's a little bit like, I mean, imagine you have, instead of like different instruments, you have a bunch of different objects, and then you're the one with the flashlight. And depending on which object you put the flashlight, you decide what is featured, actually.
What is highlighted,
And that works actually really well. And we are super grateful, because it's like, it's like a mosaic what we play. It's nothing ever repeats. You have little bits and pieces, and we always react to each other and everything. So since he made a drum part for it, it really helps to know what the hell is going on. And
it gives you definition to the piece. It allows you to kind of construct, right?
And it's always going to be something added to Bach, because there were no drums in his time.
No. And like when you only look at a certain violin part, for instance, and it's like a certain, of course, there is a certain rhythm. It's a lot of like 16 or like like Bach. And, but it stops and starts again. We could approach it differently. You could actually write that out and then play on the right cymbal exactly that, and do all the accents that the cello does with your kick drum, and then with your like really accompanying like the polyphonic thing, like a guy like Virgil Donati or people like that.
Right, Virgil, right? Yeah,
would do that. But I think in this case, first of all, I can't do it. Second, I think it musically would even be more confusing to me.
Yeah, it would, because it's already complex.
The cohesion is not there again. It just highlights the complexity of the piece.
And basically,
and it's 8 minutes long, one movement or something, or 10 minutes. I don't know, forever. It's and and this makes all sense if it's only a string quartet or something like that.
Yeah, but the
chamber music, but if it's like the band with it and strings, and
we are still there as a rock band, and we got asked as a rock band or a metal band, so we cannot do this properly if we cannot be ourselves at all anymore.
Right.
So what's constantly happening throughout the entire program is that the metal band has to take a step towards acoustic music, and the acoustic instruments
has to come towards the metal band,
spread a lot more and louder than they would have in regular chamber music. So the whole thing is like a hybrid, and I'm hoping that the public is immediately going to stop wondering, is this now old, is it new, is it Bach, is it this, is it that, but they hear something that makes sense, no matter if it's new stuff or old stuff. That would be the ideal result for me.
Well, I guess the big question, first thing that I note right now is right away watching you guys is you're both really excited to do this, especially you, Morean. I can tell you're like, just, man, I want to do this. I want to get it. I want to get in there. You want to get that first experience to see whether you fall flat on your face or whether you knock it out of the park. So I wish I was there, but I'm not going to be able to make that flight. I'm sorry. But, but the question I think I have here is, so, all right, first of all, are you playing to a click? Is there a click? Would there be a click?
Sometimes, yeah, but I guess only I will hear it.
Yeah. So that's what I was wondering. Are you going to do that or not, Hannes?
We play on him, and it's just for certain, like for the more complex pieces where it's really nice that one person knows exactly where the count is.
That's the exact tempo. Yeah, right. Yeah,
he is going to help us a lot there. But I mean, there are other pieces. Like there's also one Bach piece we do without drums, and that we're going to play just.
Okay, so the question then that comes up then there is, how much, if any, improvisation are you able to do, or are you really locked into hey, this is what the musical piece is that I've constructed, and we can't really play color outside the lines.
No, it's pretty much set, because otherwise the whole thing collapses like a
It would get chaotic.
Because it's really
Precise.
it's working on the square millimeter, as we say. You have to it has to be that note exactly there, because if it's not that note, then it's not gonna work. However, there's a couple of spots of liberty. So, for example, there's a couple of moments when we can have improvised solos from we have a fantastic jazz viola player.
Okay.
And he says he's not gonna do a project if he can't improvise. And I mean, he also studied classical, so he reads notes like everybody.
Sure.
But he needs that for his own mental health or whatever, or for his own enjoyment, that he can do something that he hasn't done before. So there's a couple of moments in the Alkaloid songs, actually, which we we can expand it a little bit here and give you a little bit of freedom. And for the rest, of course, it's in the solos. So we have had to replace the two original lead guitarists, Chris and Danny.
Yeah, can we hit on that real quick? What was there? Can we just discuss that real fast? I guess Christian just recently left, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just to finish my trail of thought where I was going. So the new guys are, of course, they are trying to do the solos from the album, but with a little bit of liberty, because I mean, now it's them playing it, right? So a solo should always be also where you can show yourself.
Sure.
Right? It doesn't make any sense to demand from a lead guitarist that he copy his predecessor note by note, unless he wants to. I mean, there are people like that as well, and I mean, I'm not going to stop him, because the work that Chris and Danny have done in this band is fabulous, of course. But I explicitly welcome also a new sound, even in existing pieces, because now it's about them, because they are on stage with us. So you should always be allowed to be yourself in music, and we'll see how far we get with that.
Was there a specific reason that Christian left? Just too much going on with Obscura and all his other projects?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically logistics was a big problem, because he's living on a different continent now.
Yeah.
So
he is. He's not in Europe.
No, he doesn't live in Europe anymore. So that's obviously a huge problem.
That's huge. Yeah, huge.
This is hard for bands with big budget, and
you don't have that.
I guess if we were as popular as Megadeth, he wouldn't need to leave, because there's enough budget to make it work, and there's enough, and every show would be paid. In a sense where you're like, okay, this is my job now. I can do it from another continent.
Yeah, or
whenever there's something
or you spend a few months there and then you go back home. But obviously that was one huge
that
problem.
Is not in the cards. So that's the thing. With both guitar players, I would say it's reasons that have nothing to do with personal, like our relationship or the music. It's basically just like personal reasons, in the sense that something in their life changed and they just couldn't combine it anymore in terms of time.
That happens a lot.
For just really personal reasons, and there was never any bad blood or anything.
No, and it as I said, it would be possible if it was on a different scale, commercially. Then because then you can, it doesn't matter, right?
You'd have the budget to fly back and forth to Europe a bunch and do all that kind of stuff.
You wouldn't have to come over for one gig, but you would do a whole run, right? And then
exactly, and or even if you did, you'd say, yeah, it's worth doing it because.
Now, who do you have? Josh, is that the new guitarist, Josh?
Justin Hombach. He's a German guitarist, YouTuber also, but he also plays in a couple of bands. He plays in Eternity.
I saw Justin. I'm American, so I see JUSTN. It's Justin, but it's Houston. Okay,
exactly. Yeah. And so he came in very recently because Chris quit not even 2 months ago, I think. So it was amazing that he could jump in, and he had time on all the dates that we had set, which was a little miracle, honestly. And he knows Chris really well. So it stayed kind of in the family. And last year we had a first tryout show with Max Blok from the Netherlands. He's an alumnus of Danny's, so
Okay.
so that is not too far from home, let's say. And we had
You mean a student? Do you mean student? Was he a student? Okay.
Like
Yeah.
when he started out, when he was young, he was studying under Danny for a while.
Right.
And I mean, he's an excellent, super nice guy, super good musician, and he filled in for Dark Fortress on Maryland Death Fest, actually. So we knew him.
Okay.
And it was so funny because the guy came, like he had like a 6-hour train ride. He came, set up his stuff, and we played through the Dark Fortress set, like top to bottom. And he played the stuff better than Victor. Like it was, and I mean Victor Vicentura, the boss of Dark Fortress.
Yeah, V. Yeah,
very accomplished, very good musician, and especially playing his own stuff. But then there were moments when Max, in his very first run of a song with us, the very first time he played with us, he'd be like, I think it's this note, and then Victor's like, oh, I think you're right. So he just basically blew us away with his meticulousness, and at the same time being like a super nice, chilled out dude and everything. So it worked just really nicely from the beginning. And he was also excited to be asked to take over guitar duties from Danny for our concerts. And it was exciting also now because, I mean, from the original lineup, there's just me, Hannes, and Linus at the moment. And we are doing this super complex thing with 2 new guys that, we just had to trust that it's going to work out. But honestly, it's been really great so far. So I'm so grateful to these 2 guys. And also today, first time playing through endless amounts of music, and they're just there. And, like I saw that.
I saw that Houston was he in Eternity's End with you?
Yeah, he's
okay.
Band, yeah.
So I know that band.
I don't write in Eternity's End.
Well, I know that band because
what the plans there, actually, to be honest. But I mean, they continue to do stuff. And
I'm familiar with them because of Phil Tugas. I know he did some work with. But Phil and I are buddies, and so
the guitar player on the second album. Yeah.
Crazy.
Great musician. Yeah. Before
crazy.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, he's like Cathealist, and so which has some kind of similarities to Alkaloid. There's some very definitive kind of directions that you could point there, and I just was curious.
Fragment.
The fragment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crazy music. Like
all you guys are fucking crazy.
More than that, with
it's cool
acoustic stuff, and
I like it.
Out of the box. Very out of the box. And
so so there's going to be 3 guitar players live then?
Yeah.
Morean, you're playing as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, for some of the songs, I was happy to give my sort of filler guitar parts to the classical people, especially if I have like a more like an atmospheric thing or like a melodic line or something to an extra layer on top of the 2 heavy rhythm guitars to the left and right. I was very happy to be able to give them some of my stuff because, of course, I have to sing everything as well. So it's a lot altogether, and everybody who's going to be on stage is a better musician than me, on their instruments. At least.
Right. So, I hear that always from you prodigy guys. Oh, everybody's better than me, but I mean, I get what you're saying, though. Yeah, it's.
The thing, I mean, I'm a composer, right? I mean, I still play and everything. I love to play, but I don't have a daily practice of keeping my technique crisp, and also my ambitions as a guitarist, they have sort of vanished, that in the ego sense, they basically stopped in 97 when I quit the flamenco guitar studies and focused on composition. So in composition, I will take any challenge, and I'm proud of it. And that's where, let's say, I want to show off my technique. But as for playing, of course, I do my best, but I know that I cannot compete with somebody who has more talent in things and who spends 10 hours a day practicing his instruments for years. So
there's some sick players out there. You can see I play a little bit occasionally, And I often just find that one guy here and there, like a Christian or like a Phil Tugas, where I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm not picking my guitar up anymore. Why bother? Like, it's just not, it's never gonna happen, you know. But then at the same point in time, then I think, well, I need to be inspired to keep playing. So I do what I do the best that I can, like you just said, the best of your ability, right?
That's all anybody can do, right?
Yeah.
You can't do more than your best ever. And the beautiful thing about music is it doesn't matter. I mean,
it doesn't matter.
if you play something, but if you play something simple and good, it's better than playing something complicated and bad, right?
Yeah.
So in order for music to be good, it doesn't need to be complicated or difficult.
No.
It is very complicated and difficult to write a simple thing that is not cheap. You know what I mean? Something that Tom Warrior of Triptychon and Celtic Frost, I think, is an absolute master in.
Yeah, that one note that he can just grind into.
And yet the song and the album and the show, they exude grandeur and big seriousness, and it's you can feel in everything that it is art, that there's something profound. He just chooses to say it with minimal means and
minimal notes. Yeah, right. Yeah,
I'm a bit the opposite. I like complex stuff, so of course I gravitate to, and I think we all have this problem a little bit.
A little bit. You guys do like a lot of notes. There's no doubt about that. But
the thing is, for us composers, an interesting challenge is, like, if you write something super technical and it's hard to play and the player maybe is struggling with it, you can wonder, like, okay, what I want to say, can I say this in a different form? Like, do I have to say this with 1,000,000 notes per second? Or can I just choose a different chord that has the same tension or the same function?
I guess asking yourself the question, what do I actually want to say with that?
Yeah.
Like, what is because it's not a language, music, that is as precise as what we're doing. Like, we're talking right now, using words, sentences, phrases. Somebody can understand the actual meaning.
Yeah.
I can go into a restaurant and order a burger, and I will get something to eat that is exactly what I say it is. You cannot be that precise with music unless we come up with a musical language where it's like, is the code for, can I have a double cheeseburger, please?
Yeah.
Or something like that. If that's the phrase that means it, and you have to learn it, like sign language or something like that. But it's not that way.
Yeah, it's abstract.
So it's abstract, and the only thing you can communicate with is, or the thing you can communicate with it best, is moods and emotions and that kind of thing.
Yeah, direction, build up. Yeah. And it's colors, basically. It's like you're painting with colors.
You're painting. Yeah, you're painting.
But I mean, you know yourself. I mean, was it Picasso who has one famous drawing where he drew the outline of a bull in a single line, and it's divine. And you can say, like, yeah, it's simple because it's a single line, but it's not simple actually. It is, the essence of his vast knowledge of how to draw represented in one single line. And you'll be hard put to find somebody who can do the same, especially like out of nowhere. Maybe now people can copy Picasso's line,
right?
But very few people can just use almost nothing and give you a lot with it. And more and more, like, also because I get older and those 16ths are not getting any easier. I wonder more and more, like, okay, do we actually need such exorbitant tools to say what we have to say? So I think in your writing, I noticed also on the last two albums for sure that you give the material more time in your songs, and it's less full, and it's actually, if anything, it's going towards more clarity. And I think that's really amazing, because it's still complex. It's not cheap. Just because it's fewer notes doesn't mean that all of a sudden the music is not interesting anymore. But you have to choose. If you have fewer notes, you have to choose each note even better than if you just swamp thing with all the notes there are at the same time.
I would say how can you put that? There's a lot of things I repeat and that I do over and over again, but more on a formal, like on a conceptual basis. Like I have this fascination with opening songs and the certain energies they have.
Oh yeah.
Album starts and you get to say, hey, it's my favorite album. I put it on. Something happens, and this opening tunes have a certain energy about it, and I'm obsessed with that. For instance, just one thing. and I always try to reinforce that same thing, like the same thing with different means. But to me it's always the same. To me, the 3 openers from the Alkaloid albums are to me the same song, maybe, but they're not the same song, but they represent the same emotion, the same thing,
the same idea expressed at 3 different times in 3 different contexts.
Yes,
it was the same with Dark Fortress. I mean, we have 8 studio albums, and actually I think the band tried to make the same album every single time, because I know this not because they sound alike. I mean, sometimes, but that's not the point. The point is that the perfect album that Dark Fortress wanted to create, since they were super young, that utopia, or that perfect image of the perfect album was the same. It's just you can hear the difference through the albums. How, I mean, of course the band members changed here and there, but then also you can hear what we learned on, over almost 30 years of developing this sound and the style of the band. So that the development in between an album and another album allows you to basically try the same again, but with better knowledge and with everything that you've learned, and out comes something that is hopefully better than last time you tried to say the same thing.
Differently, based on the same, rooted in the same idea.
The tricky thing about being in metal bands or being a metal musician, often I find, is that we as metal fans, all 3 of us, obviously, I mean, you look around my room, you see I'm a 60-year-old guy, still have fucking Rainbow and Crimson Glory. Like, no chicks come in here. Never. They just don't come in here. But I've been married, had kids. I've moved on from that. But long story short is that it's worked for some bands. I mean, look at AC/DC. They've made the same fucking record pretty much every time they make a record, and it sells millions of albums. So who's wrong, who's right? You guys don't do that because you're always kind of striving for that next achievement thing. But the problem, and you do have your own identity. I mean, there is an Alkaloid sound. There's no doubt about that, right? But the tricky thing is that if you color outside the lines sometimes, then your fan base is like, oh, what are they doing here? They did like a funk thing in that one song. What the fuck, And then
somebody complains about that.
Yeah, well, we've been trying to make it clear from the very beginning that that's not going to work in this band, because it's a composer's band, and even though, the 2 of us wrote most of the songs, but everybody contributes things, even if it's just a lead or one song or whatever. Right. It's about the creativity for us. It's about the writing. So the songwriting is the core of this band, and the freedom for each of us to write things that they couldn't write in a different band, in a band that was more set. That was basically, at least in my memory, also why we started a new band at, I was almost 40. To go through the whole shit again, because there was really artistic necessity that we all felt like, okay, we each brought something that we wanted to say, but didn't have the vehicle in our existing bands to do. Right. So our only, how do you say that? Our only compass where we're going to go in the future is actually where we want to go. Of course, we have to like what we do. And if if one of us writes a song that everybody else hates, well, then maybe we have to talk about it, Yeah. But basically it's about adventure and exploration. So when you create something, you always need something new and something familiar in it. And a band like AC/DC that you mentioned, but also other bands some of my favorite bands, Cannibal Corpse, Meshuggah, Slayer, there are so many bands that you feel they rather try to perfect their thing than to look for something new every time. So it feels to me like they are very consciously busy with the consistency. They know they want to stay on the track where they are. They just want to go deeper into it. As you say, there is no truth. There is nothing wrong about that, because that's also really, really difficult. I mean, I don't know how the Cannibal Corpse guys go about, conceptualizing their next album, for example, because it must be a hard question if but it's set and the cover is going to look probably like this, and this is going to be what the
you're somewhat locked into, Cannibal's a great example. Probably pound for pound the most successful death metal band on the planet, probably, maybe, I would think.
Yeah.
But they can't deviate too much from that sort of thing, because then they become something else, and then that fan base goes,
Exactly.
what the hell, they got a ballad on there and it's about torturing children, but it's acoustic. What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Who does that? That would lose them fans.
They have actually spread out a lot already in their style when you think about it, and I guess it's said that it has to be brutal.
Yeah,
that's with them. Like, the music has to be brutal and dark and extreme and negative, and
the identity is set in stone.
And the sound is kind of that, and they have a certain sound, and it's a large part, like guitar sound, drum sound, and all that. It's a large part of their identity, I would say. The way they play, the way the musical textures are, that's all set, or how it's going to be, but exactly how they do it, like this time. Also, they have like instrumental pieces and stuff like that are rather complex. So they're
playing, I just saw
simple 4 to the floor songs, heavy, slow, then faster songs, and like the range within their narrow field is pretty wide.
That's true. Yeah, actually, they're making the most of it, and I think at a certain point the two extremes meet each other. If you go far enough, either deeply into it or spreading wide, at a certain point you're going to arrive maybe at the sweet spot where it's exactly perfect. But I mean, for me, what I need when I write, because I'm a full-time composer, so I have to think of something pretty much every day, basically. That's not a problem for me, but what would be a problem is if I'm not interested in my own stuff anymore, because I already know what it's going to sound like. So I just, in order to stay interested in my own work, I need to try new things, and I'm okay with maybe failing sometimes, or seeing like, okay, this didn't work out quite as much or quite as well as I imagined before, but that's all right. I mean, for me, it's always okay if you try something new and fail. I'd rather that you do that than that you don't even try. So
sure.
The odd terrible album from a great band or something, like, I don't know, I cannot stand the Load album by Metallica, for example, and what came after was even worse.
Who can?
I don't have a problem with the fact that they did this or whatever, that Opeth did their death metal free album or something. I think it's awesome.
Morean went there. He brought up that Opeth. I heard it.
Well, so I
get you completely, though.
I am always in favor of trying something new, just because that's what excites me. But somebody else might hate anything new, and there's a lot of metalheads, at least here, that think like that aren't exactly open. But these guys, they go to Sodom or power metal or whatever. They're not going to end up by accident in an Alkaloid show, because I don't think they're going to last 4 bars into our So it's just basically, it's also a lot simpler than all that, because we're just trying to be ourselves, and then hopefully somebody will like it.
As I said earlier, as music is communicating emotions, but if you have a preconceived idea of what you want to feel, for instance, you want to go out and make party, and that's what you want to feel, then you're better off with an Uncle Tom show than with an Alkaloid show. And it's not a judgmental thing. It's just in that case, it works better. You want to have simple songs and sing along and have fun and get drunk. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not what we do. And where people make mistakes is when they say, oh, I like this and this is what I'm looking for, and I think everything should be like that.
Oh yeah.
That's where it becomes dangerous, I think, because you can just say, it's not for me.
And the reality of it is that there's a lot of metal fans that probably can't really get their head around what you guys do. Let's be honest. I mean, if they're listening to Load and Reload and they're listening to AC/DC, they're not going to look at Alkaloid and go, oh yeah, I'm totally digging on what this is, because it's complex. You really got to immerse yourself in it. You know what I mean? And it's, so, hey, a couple quickies, because I want to get you out of here real fast. So What are the dates again for the Bach Out of Bounds? So it's this Saturday.
Yeah, 29th of June in Dordrecht, and then on the 4th of July in The Hague, and on the 10th of November in another city in the Netherlands called Den Bosch. So
Now, are these really nice venues? I'm assuming they're kind of.
I mean, they are pop venues, so
Okay.
more like black box theater kind of things, not like a symphony hall, because
Right.
that would be a problem. But it's in the context of classical music festivals.
Okay. Okay.
And
What? Sorry,
Yeah.
Hannes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying the venues in Holland are really nice usually.
Of
In the
course.
Netherlands, they put, or in the past, they decided to put a lot of money into concert halls and arts and cultural centers, and you can actually see that and hear it.
Yeah.
Morean, you left Art Fortress recently, right? Was that just in this last year, right? Or was it last year?
Yeah, we had we called it quits as a band.
Okay,
So
band.
we had our final tour exactly a year ago. And it was a bit of a sad thing, but it was ultimately a consequence of something that, took already a couple of years of steady decline. Not so much because of us, because of the music or the people in the band, but it just got harder and harder to even get together, and with people in 3 countries and everything, it just really got frustrating trying to get anything done. And the amount of energy that you have to put into anything and money just became so insanely high that we saw like, look, this is not sustainable anymore. Yeah. We tried to keep it going as long as we possibly could, because the problem started around 2011 already. So actually, and we didn't want to stop, because we liked it too much. But it was already back then that we saw like, okay, we're probably not gonna get a lot further than where we are.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, we make one more album, we give it our all, and that was released in 2020. And then we were going to tour more than we ever have before. Our first time
pandemic hit,
going to South America and stuff. All the things that we always wanted to do. We said like, okay, let's have one more season where we try to do as much as possible from the things we never managed to do. But then the pandemic hit, and when the pandemic was finally over 2 years later, only a few things of that initial last concert season that we had planned survived.
Still on the table. Yeah,
among them were luckily the Maryland Death Fest and the California Death Fest, so that was really cool to because we had a large fan base always in the States, so it was great to at least have those 2 shows. I mean, we were going to do a West Coast tour also, but all that fell victim to the pandemic. But then actually this last tour came, and it was great. It was so amazing because people would fly over from like Japan and the States and Norway, and you had a feeling, even though we didn't play the biggest halls, that everybody who was there was a hardcore fan, and almost all the shows were packed, like super full. So the mood was great. The other bands were great. We had really nice, chemistry in between everybody. The bus didn't break down until the very last day. It was a good tour actually, and so it was better to end it, to
on a high note, and then on a high note,
and that it's in our control. That we said, okay, guys, we unfortunately have to stop, but let's do it properly as we can, and okay, that's it.
Hannes, what all like? It would be like 6 hours if we went through every one of your bands and things that you're involved in. So let's just highlight a couple biggies. Triptychon, what's going on that you can speak to? Anything?
We have
some shows.
Yeah, we have a couple of shows this year, but not too much because we're actually starting to work on a new record.
Ooh,
it's about time, I guess.
Yeah, it's been a little while, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's like good red wine. It's time to,
And you just put a solo album out in April, an EP, I believe, right? It was an EP.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. How'd that go? How's the reception for that?
The reception is very good, especially since I didn't do any advertisement. The only thing I did was putting it out, really. Like, hey, here's the thing. There's 5 new songs. 3 of them sound like Necrophages. There you go.
And then
20 years Epitaph came out, and I was like, would it be nice to pay tribute to that, because it started my career, and I was like, yeah, let's see if I can actually write something like that, because I know kind of the formula in some sense. I know what the drums were doing, I know what the guitar was doing.
Right.
So
I think you could
Yeah.
answer the second question.
So so this guy Tam is asking, would like to hear from Honest about his experience playing in Egypt.
You can see that.
But you guys actually played in Egypt with Alkaloid, right? Too. I was
Yes.
like stunned when I saw. I'm like, what the fuck? Like nobody in metal plays Egypt. How'd that happen?
Well, it's very simple. We have a friend called Nader Sadek, who had his own band as well. I mean, he's a he's a name in the death metal scene. He worked with a lot of known death metal people.
Sure.
And he was the first guy who tried to get bands from abroad, metal bands from abroad, to Egypt. So he just wanted some proper bands in his home country and
Good
home
metal,
city,
yeah.
Cairo. But it's a bloody tragedy because he did a couple of shows, like 5 maybe altogether during like a year.
He tried to.
But he was sabotaged out of it, and he actually got arrested because, and it was all about money. It was all bullshit.
Yeah.
Some
Corruption.
people high up who have an uncle in the police or something. They just made some completely ridiculous claim that he's breaking laws that he knew he's not breaking, and they were after him for a while. And the culmination was that he brought Sepultura to Egypt, and they set up, and it was all ready. And then, I mean, you were there, no?
Yeah, I was there.
And so maybe you can better tell it. But they came with the army to arrest him because of some bureaucratic.
I think it's because
paper that was missing or
Nala
something.
didn't have any money left to bribe them.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say it's all corruption.
On the door and like,
Has to be corruption.
it's like, sorry, I don't have anything, and then
completely.
shut it down.
And the real tragedy is this guy. He worked very hard to make stuff happen, and he's in prison. And he's been in prison for 3-4 years already. And the last thing I heard, because it's a bit hard to communicate. I mean, he writes me handwritten letters and stuff. It breaks my heart, because I really like the guy. And you can say about him whatever you want, but he doesn't harm anybody. Yeah. Wow. But they gave him 15 years, I hear, for blasphemy and drug trafficking. And, I mean, it's utter bullshit. Hang on a tick. Maybe you tell him.
Yeah, do you want to, Hannes, you want to answer that question real quick and then just give us an update on everything you've got going on with
the
projects?
I mean, for us, it was a highlight because it was great to play there. People are so receptive. It's not really possible for bands to play there because there's no infrastructure in metal and no battle bookers or anything. So Nader set it up himself. And we played for 1,000 people or something like that.
Wow, no shit.
I had a big room, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic audience. Fantastic show. One of the best shows in my life.
Yeah.
This was
Alkaloid
or Nectar? This was Alkaloid. The Alkaloid.
Yeah. I also played with his own band, Nader Sadek. I also played there, and it was fantastic too. Yeah. And I have to say, there were.
You guys got a row. I know. I get it. So,
people in the first row with like head scarves, and where you like the Muslim women, and they're like head banging and Slayer shirt.
No, it's really awesome. Honestly, really cool. It was an experience you never forget, and it was humbling in the most positive way because, I was growing up in Germany in the 80s and in a super conservative part of Bavaria, and I was this long-haired freak, and I thought I was a rebel and against the system and stuff. But actually, the worst thing that anybody could do to me where I grew up was, a stupid comment or whatever.
Call you names or something. Yeah, you're a freak or a weirdo. You don't get arrested for that kind of shit.
And there, I mean, when those kids started talking to us about their daily life in Egypt, which is, among the Islamic countries, it's one of the more relaxed countries. But even there, the guy just told us, he was wearing a black shirt, like me, not even like a symbol, logo, anything.
Yeah.
And he's taking his lunch break in his job, and then he has a hand on his shoulder, and the police just threw him in the prison for 2 weeks because they didn't like his shirt. And shit like this happens all the time. Like most of these guys, their life dream is to go to Wacken or to some Hellfest or some other festival because they're the same as us, man. They're
with their tribe, man. They're with their people, right?
They want to just enjoy that music, but they can't even get a passport.
Yeah.
So the problem is that they don't have any rights. It's not a state based on law, but based on whoever is in power. They can decide.
Well, you don't have
any rights. They're like, but look, the law says you have to give me a passport so I can travel. No, they don't have that benefit. And then you realize, man, we are so blessed in the West that we got to grow up as freely as we did, because, man, I mean, you are standing in front of those guys. You feel almost ashamed because you think like, man, I've been so privileged, and like, oh, boring. I don't want to go to another concert because I've seen too many, And these guys would eat their grandmother so that they could go to a concert, and then they start crying when you play your bullshit in front of them. That was really starting the Dyson Sphere thing. I remember, like, it was a super bizarre song. I'm standing in Egypt next to the Nile playing it for 700 kids in Egypt, and they start crying because I play my weird riff. That was really,
it was great.
It was an absolutely amazing experience that I think we can also never repeat. Actually,
well, here's
we should play North Korea next time.
I was just gonna say, here's the scary thing. In November in this country, shit could get really fucking weird. I'll just stop there, but we might be faced with that here. I'm scared of that, to be honest.
It may happen all over Europe as well.
Yeah,
one way or the other. These are times of turmoil and
uncertain times, man. Yeah,
we just have to survive and go on. I mean, it's the same as always. It's harder than usual, but what are we gonna do?
Last thing, you guys do have some Alkaloid gigs that are separate from the Bach Out of Bounds thing. So there's maybe 5 or 6 of those going into December.
We play one summer festival called Partisan in Germany in August, and then in December we do 3 shows around the area where we are from. So in southern Germany and Austria, and then we'll see what the next seasons will bring. But for this year, that's what we managed to actually make happen with a lot.
If you guys got the right offer, I would assume Maryland Death Fest would be a great opportunity. Right?
Even though, getting the visa to play a show is absurd. I mean, it was 2 years of constant nightmare and bureaucratic hell beyond Kafka. It was really so bad that I don't want to ever go through that again, but I would be super excited to go back to the States to play, because the fans are great, the band are great, like the scene is great. It's such a privilege to meet these guys, but there's all this bureaucratic monster in between that is created to make it impossible. And in times like these,
the expense is crazy right now. I mean, it's just so fucking expensive to tour. You guys know this. I mean, for big bands to tour, but smaller death metal bands or more obscure bands where you're not playing to thousands of people. I mean, MDF you would be, but if you guys did a club tour, it would be really brutal. I'm good friends with Greg Chandler from Esoteric, and they came over for the first time in 11 years, and all kind of nightmarish things. The van broke down, and the guy's trying to sue them, and it's like, are you fucking kidding?
The thing is, we're doing this not because of everything it entails, but despite it. If you get because we love the music, and we are stupid enough to keep doing it, even though it makes absolutely no sense in an economic sense, like none whatsoever. And it used to be that at least with concerts you can get like a little bit of money, but that's also over because everything's 3 times as expensive. So we get I got so many offers for Alkaloid for like half the travel costs. And sorry,
are you serious?
I've been a professional musician for 30 bloody years, and I cannot come for half the travel costs. I'm sorry. If that is too much to ask, then go to hell. I'm very sorry, but it's you pay with your own blood, And I
don't think, and truthfully, I'm 58, so I've been in this game a long time, going to a hell of a lot of shows, going all the way back to to 1979 seeing Kiss the first time, you know, when they were, you know, meteoric huge, right? And I don't think a lot of metalheads kind of get that it's extremely expensive to tour. And to go out on tour, to go away from home, maybe go away from a real job, which a lot of metal dudes do have real jobs. You have a real job, Morean. If you're going to do it for literally nothing and sleep 3 hours a night and just be fucking burnt to the crisp, is it really? You might do that when you're in your 20s just because it's like the coolest thing ever. Exactly. But by the time you get in your 40s, you're like, fuck this shit, man. No way. So.
And you know, the sad thing is, it's not at all that the fans are the problem. No, the fans are amazing. I mean, the fans, I mean, we have now for Saturday, I know people come again flying in from, I don't know,
killer
what countries to see that one sort of smallish show that we're doing. I mean, the dedication is amazing. And, you know, they buy the albums, they buy the merch, they support you in any way they can. So the fans are definitely not the problem. And I think it's also unfair to say, like, okay, everything got 3 times as expensive, so you have to give us even more than you're already doing. I think the fans should not pay the bill. Who has to pay the bill is the people who profit from our work and who, you know, make off with all the money and leave us in the ditch. That is where things have to change. But it's not gonna work to punish the fans for their support, because the fans are not the problem. The bands are also not the problem. But yeah, we have to find a way that is sustainable to keep doing music. And
the very last thing, it was 5 years in the making. I imagine, will it be another 5 years? Will it be 2 years, or will it just kind of happen when it happens?
I could say.
Let's see.
My end.
Let's see how many pandemics and wars are gonna fuck us up.
Promises, but we're working on it.
We are not,
guys. Thank you so very much for all your time today. We got right in at the hour, 61 minutes. So I apologize for that.
To watch soccer now.
Yeah,
Germany.
Oh, you got to go watch soccer, of course. So, thank you so much for your time, guys. I hope I get a chance to see you at some point in time, maybe over this way, or you know.
And you know, do stay in touch and let us know if you want to do a follow up. Always
would like to do that with both you guys, maybe separately, just to talk about your careers individually. I like these longer form things where we have conversations, not where it's all just the rote. Oh, we have to promote that. We have to promote that kind of stuff. I like talking metal. I like talking music.
But also, you know, just in between, also, if you have a subject or something, just contact us. We'd be very happy to do this again.
All right, man. You guys have a great evening and good luck on the shows, and I'll be in touch. And again, thank you very much to Will from Season of Mist for making this happen. Will, thank you, buddy.
Will rules.
Will's the best. So thank you guys. Take care. Okay. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Okay.